Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to another exciting and informative video on our YouTube channel. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to thank you for watching. In this episode, we shall be diving into how France continuously and systematically destroyed the continent of Africa. I will bring to you some analytical information, look into perspective, discuss this episode like you have never before seen. I will encourage you to watch this video to the end for clarity and better understanding. So without any more delay, let's just dive straight into it. If you look at the current geopolitical trends in the continent of Africa, specifically in West Africa, French-speaking regions, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and recently Niger, and we can also add Gabon. If you think this is just happening by mistake, then you must be mistaken. I will be looking at this episode from different aspects and also why France's hands and fingerprints are all over the place in West Africa. If you consider France's presence in Africa, France is Africa's never-ending nightmare. The pain and destruction France has caused Africa is quite untold. To the French elites of yesterday and today, Africa as a continent is nothing but an uncivilized, in quotes, colony that needs to be civilized. As French President Emmanuel Macron recently made it clear to France, Africa has a civilization problem and France cannot abandon Africa. Moving forward, in fact, France has been a civilizing mission in Africa since the mid-1800s. France conquered large parts of North, West and also Central Africa as part of its attempt to civilize Africa. Sadly, however, France's national motto, called Liberté, Equalité and Fraternité, Liberté, Égalité and Fraternité in French, did not apply to its African colonies. Moving ahead, France was and remains one of the most barbaric colonial masters of all times. France's colonial activities in Algeria, for example, was so barbaric it shocked even the perpetrators themselves. According to Emmanuel Macron, the current president of France, admitted recently that, in fact, France's 132 years colonization of Algeria involved crimes and acts of barbarism. And to those of you who don't know how barbaric it was in Algeria, over 1 million Algerians lost their life, and decapitation as well was a French game during Algeria war for independence. Most other colonies who challenged French authorities had it worse than Algeria, and some of their stories remain untold. If you look at Senegal, Cameroon, as well as different parts across the region, all have experienced French barbaric actions regarding its incredible historical and barbaric presence in the region of the continent of Africa. As we look at events that continue to happen in the region, the question, however, remains, why is France so much interested in civilizing Africa? This is the big question we are looking at here. Well, there is no simple answer to this question. However, according to the late French president François Mitterrand, without Africa, he said, France would have no history in the 21st century. Why he said so? Well, France needed energy, money and resources, and France continues to get all the plus more and more in the region of Africa. It is, however, you want to consider that it is almost impossible for any French colony to gain total independence, and reasons is because so simple. France puts measures and also in place to control and manage its former colonies from afar. Although many of the French African countries or colonies, to the point out, had gained independence by 1965, France was still in control of their affairs of those former colonies. Someone may ask, for example, what are some of the measures France put in place to control the affairs of its former colonies? If you look at different aspects, considering Guinea, Mali, and also Burkina Faso and Cameroon, including other countries like Ivory Coast at the moment, which is the French jewel, well, a key term to understand France's role in modern African affairs is what they call actually France Afrique. This term of France Afrique refers to the action and policies of a network established by the French army officer and former President General Charles de Gaulle and his ally Jacques Foccart. This network of African politicians, leaders, and businessmen help France maintain and control former colonies. If you are new to this channel, we encourage you to check some of our informative videos about the continent of Africa. We encourage you to support this channel because sometimes some of the videos that we produce on this channel do not get this actual views and likes as a result of the critical topics that we are looking at that affects the life of the African people and the growth and the trajectory of the African continent entirely. So we deep down into our research for you to motivate us and encourage us to continue to produce exciting research-based content. We encourage you to share our videos and to let us know that we are making a huge impact to your own understanding and to the geopolitics in the region. So let's jump back into the video. I want to thank you for that like. Moving ahead, how does France Afrique works in total? We've made a video here that talk about France Afrique. We encourage you to check that video on our YouTube channel. The big question many will ask here is, how does France Afrique work? Well, it may surprise you to know that France provides the currency of 14 African countries, 12 of which are ex-colonies: Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, also including Benin, including Burkina Faso, as well as Senegal, Ivory Coast, Niger, and also Togo, with a combined GDP of just over 100 billion US dollars. Use the West African franc. Also Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Brazzaville, and also Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, with a combined GDP of just over 120 billion that may have changed so far US dollars. Use the Central African franc. The two currencies are known together as the CFA franc. Both the West African country franc and the Central African franc are provided, managed, and controlled by the French treasury. In other words, much of those countries' resources and wealth is actually managed and controlled by the French treasury. Moving forward, former French President Jacques-René Chirac admitted this in an interview in January 2001 in Yaoundé, Cameroon, during the 21st African-France Summit, in which he said in an interview, Jacques Chirac said, "We, France, have to be honest and also acknowledge that a big part of the money in our banks comes precisely from France's exploitation of the continent of Africa." Just recently, France's former president Nicolas Sarkozy was in police custody to be questioned over allegations that he received millions of euros in illegal elections campaign funding from the regime of the late Mohamed Gaddafi. Sarkozy was taken into custody. Former President Sarkozy was taken into police custody not because France saw anything wrong with Sarkozy's taking money from Gaddafi, but because the money Sarkozy took from Gaddafi illegally financed his 2007 presidential campaign. Sarkozy took over, based on major reports, over 50 million euros from Gaddafi to finance his presidential campaign. And France is mad because that money helped Sarkozy win the election. Meanwhile, that is exactly how France operates in some parts of Africa. You could see that the president is continuing to have issues based on his previous reign in that country of France. Moving ahead, because the former French African colonies are all resource-rich nations, French companies such as Arriva and Total have made major investment in regions, as we saw from 1994 scandal involving the French oil company Elf. Those French companies in Africa mostly pay bribes to African leaders to secure their allegiance to France and maintain French rights to local oil and other resources. France often uses money and power to influence elections in Africa so that their favorable candidate win. This also explains why France continues to support crazy leaders in Africa, like former Chad President Idriss Deby, who had been in power since 1990 and unfortunately had met his demise most recently. This is how France continued to manipulate the continent of Africa, and you consider that why African countries at the moment, especially those in the Francophone nations, are continuing to speak out and also standing up to France to push back with regards to France's interference and manipulation in those countries. If you look at events currently in Guinea, look at events in Burkina Faso, and recently in Niger, and what just happened in Gabon, you would imagine that based on information and also interaction and with the French presence in the region, and the reason why most of those countries have expelled French ambassadors, and you will want to question yourself as to the reason why France is refusing to accept, based on a couple of weeks ago, that an ambassador will not leave Niger. That sounds really interesting based on Vienna Accord. If you want to understand the reason why that's so important and why France is refusing to exit that country, it's as a result of the enough resources that France will lose as a result of its exit, and that will allow other nations to step into its place. France has not developed those particular regions. France's investment in those francophone countries cannot be compared or matched with what the Chinese have done, even the European Union in general or the United States. France continues to exploit those countries. I think we're beginning to see a new generation of African leaders who are standing up to the French hegemony in those regions. We all shall be looking at what happened the next couple of months and years, how the juntas in those regions in Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and now in Niger, and also in Gabon, who hand power over to civilian governments who can be able to meet the needs of their people and drive their country forward. We want to thank you for watching. We're looking forward to meeting you soon. If you are new to this channel, we encourage you to check some of our informative video. We are looking forward to meeting you again in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.